makes us better than we think we can be.
That's exactly.
So, I'm a real crier, so it'll probably happen. So, back in 1988, Pat and I had known each other for several years because when they were rebuilding St. William the Abbot, we went to church in the hall, the gym, and we sat outside with our 9 rather boisterous children. And so we had done many things together before this event happened. And Pat told me one day that she had a reservation on Amtrak, and this is 28 years ago. She was going to go out to Salt Lake City, Utah for the first ever, I believe, Williams Syndrome Convention. And I said, sure, I'd love to go. She had to ask. But I just got my tickets, and so that now there were, well, I'll read what I wrote. It was August of 1988, and Pat was setting off to Salt Lake City, Utah for a Williams Syndrome Convention. She decided this trip would be an adventure. Everything with Pat is an adventure, but this trip was really an adventure. This trip was taken on Amtrak trains with 2 adults, Pat, myself, and 9 children, of which mine included a phenomenally hormonal 50-year-old boy and a 4-month-old, and the rest. Why not? We arrived at Grand Central Station after having been dropped off by our respective husbands, both of whom hoped that we would do well and come back, but actually just waved to us as we traipsed across Grand Central Station with sheets, bagels falling out of bags, homeless people picking them up. It was an adventure. We were frightening the elderly and any small children in our path. I don't know if you remember, but 1988 was a terrible drought year. It was humongously hot. We got on a train in Grand Central at night with no air conditioning, all the way to Chicago. This was not our idea of fun and frivolity, and it was not our children's idea of fun and frivolity either, but we did make it to Chicago, where they put us in a room very much like where they would put the cattle just before they went to slaughter. And they kept us there. I don't know, it seemed like forever waiting for a train that would leave Chicago that fortunately did have air conditioning. This unforgettable trip took us across the country from the cornfields of the Midwest to the Grand Canyon, Yellowstone National Park, where the fires of the summer were forcing the wildlife out to the open. We had a bull buffalo right behind the motel, and well, you know, Shea children, everybody just had to go out and make friends with these animals. And we saw a lot of other people doing it too, but we stayed one night in Yellowstone, and the next day they closed the park because of the fires. And so there we were with all 11 of us traipsing out of Yellowstone Park with kids complaining and et cetera, et cetera. When we would get on the train in the Midwest, when we got on those trains with 11 people, the trains would empty out. The whole car would empty out. I mean, it did not take long for our children to get people to leave. And we didn't have seats until they did. We made it to the conference, and where we were several times, our children were evangelized by Mormons. And we just carefully took our children away. Oh, okay. And well, I already said that we would empty train cars. We returned 1 month after we left, and the trip was one that none of us will ever forget. Any trip with Pat is a learning experience for me, and this one was no different. I learned from Pat what it is to be a strong, decisive woman. She left me in Seattle. She went on to to visit friends that she'd gone to, friends she'd gone to St. John's with. And I just didn't know what to do with myself. I could not afford to stay where I was. And so I called Pat, and she was out on Tybee Island, not Tybee, what's the island? Whidbey Island. And she got her friend, and they came and got me, and my children. And Pat slept out in a, well,
It's a little cabin.
it was a cabin out in the woods with my children, one of whom is with me, who threw up all over Pat. But I wasn't there. I didn't clean up after Katie. Pat cleaned up after Katie. I was in a beautiful house overlooking Puget Sound, and I had more of our children there. It was just, I'm telling you what, why we did that trip, who knows, but it was such an experience to be with Pat and to see how she handles things, and just to, she always does things pleasantly and with a sense of humor, and I know you all know that who are in this room. My family will never forget this experience. And when we got off that train at Grand Central, I'm telling you what, we were so happy to be home. But it was an experience we'll never forget. And I came home, and I left with birds and gerbils in my house, and they were both gone. It was wonderful. And thank you, Pat. You are such a good friend.